Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our water industry careers panel. Just wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining on. Looks like we already have 24 attendees in the room right now. But if you have any questions, feel free to just type it in the chat box, but we will begin around 10 a.m. So thank you everyone for holding tight. I did want to say hello to some people that I know I spoke with before coming here. Bob Ward, thank you for joining us. Claudia, I know you're coming from WRD. Donald Kennedy, the Youth Build Group with Miss Alvarado, Mr. Plotkin with Arena Virtual High School, and looks like a lot of students are here from Lawndale High School. So really excited to have you here. Again, we'll wait about a few more minutes to officially get started. So hang on tight. Hi, everyone. This is Janelle again, popping in to say welcome to our water industry careers guest panel. I see that a lot of people are joining in right at 10 a.m. So we're going to give them another minute or so before we go ahead and get started. So again, thank you for everyone's patience, but welcome to the event. Really excited to have you all here today. Okay, so to go ahead and get started, one of my partners, Monica, is going to go ahead and launch a poll for all of you today. So Monica, go ahead and make that poll live, and we would love to hear from all of you. If you were able to watch Camille or Stephanie's videos before today's webinar, if not, that's perfectly okay because they are on YouTube and they're available for you to see at any time after this panel. So I see that about a quarter of everyone has already submitted answers to the poll. We'll wait a few more moments. Okay, I would say that's pretty close to everyone who is joining us here today. So we'll go ahead and end that poll. Looks like a majority of us did not watch our videos before today's webinar, but that is totally fine because again, they are on YouTube at any time. And we have both Camille and Stephanie here with us today. So you can get a little bit more of background information about their career paths and actually ask your questions live. Great. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to briefly check in with the chat box to make sure I'm not missing anything. I see that a few people have sent in questions already. So thank you very much for doing that. So again, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Water Industry Careers Guest Panel. Thank you to everyone for joining us for the second ever panel hosted by West Basin Municipal Water District and the Water Replenishment District. If you have not seen it already, we actually hosted a panel back in October 2020 where we had 4 guest panelists that shared their careers in operations, geographic information systems, and hydrogeology. Please check out those videos to learn more. So today we are going to get an in-depth look at different careers in the water industry and hear firsthand insight from 2 amazing water industry professionals, both of whom inspire me. The information that you'll receive today is really valuable in entering the water industry, especially considering that 1/3 of the water industry workforce will be eligible to retire in 10 years. So we're going to need people to fill in those jobs. And even then, through a pandemic or a zombie attack or an earthquake or a hurricane, we will still need water to live and survive. And that means we need a lot of workers to support that. I'm going to go on to the next slide. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce you all to the faces behind this program. My name is Janelle Ancayan, and I am the Education Coordinator for West Basin Municipal Water District. I help oversee all of our school-age education programs, such as water recycling facility tours, engineering programs, and this program you're all attending today. I'm very fortunate to be working in the water industry, and I hope that you all can find a meaningful career in your future as well. I'll hand it off to my partner in crime, Monica, to introduce herself as well.
Thank you so much, Janelle. Good morning, everyone. My name is Monica Sider, and I am a Senior Public Affairs Representative for the Water Replenishment District. I oversee the education program, and that includes tours of our Albert Robles Center for Water Recycling and Environmental Learning Facility, working on water conservation programs, and partnering with water agencies like West Basin to bring you the webinar you are about to be a part of. Back to you, Janelle.
Thank you very much, Monica. I'm going to go on to the next slide as well, because I wanted to take the time to recognize the general managers for both of our agencies, Gregory Reed from West Basin and Stefan Tucker from WRD. Unfortunately, Greg is not able to join us today, but he is really excited that you are all taking the next step to explore a fulfilling career path in the water industry. Stefan will be joining us in a few slides to give us some background information of his agency. So following our agenda, we will first go over webinar logistics, give you background information about both of our agencies, and take a look at a number of water industry careers available to you. You can ask questions at any point during this webinar, and we will have our panel address those questions live for the majority of our panel. We'll then conclude with some specific ways you can join the water industry, such as through professional organizations, scholarships, internships, and through local colleges. We technically have until 11:30 a.m. this morning, but we plan to finish in about an hour, so we want to get you out early on this wonderful Friday. So let's get started on webinar logistics. As an attendee, you will not be able to share your camera or use your microphone. At the bottom of your Zoom viewer, you should have 2 options, a Q&A and a chat. We will not be using the hand raise function, so please use the Q&A to identify your questions to either Camille or Stephanie and send it our way, or you can use a chat box to say anything else you want. So to request webinar slides and a recording of this event, please send an email to either myself or Monica, and we will be happy to help you. So with Zoom training out of the way, let's meet our panelists. I've gotten the pleasure to work with both of these ladies recently, and again, they have a lot of knowledge to share to all of you. Today, we are joined by Camille Castillo, a water resources engineer at West Basin, and Stephanie Cuevas, a senior government affairs representative at WRD. We'll have both of them give a brief overview of their education, career journey, and current duties in their job, and maybe they'll share a fun fact about themselves as well. So I'll invite both of them to go ahead and share their cameras, and we'll hand it off first to Camille, and then we'll have Stephanie introduce herself. So go on ahead.
Thanks, Janelle. Hi, everyone. My name's Camille Castillo. As Janelle said, I've been working as a water resource engineer at West Basin for about 3 years now. I studied environmental engineering at UC San Diego. And I'd say a fun fact about me is I actually was able to backpack across South America for 6 months a few years ago. So that was really fun.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Cuevas, and I'm the Senior Government Affairs Rep at WRD. And I've had that role for just over 2 years. My educational background is I went to Yale University and I majored in American Studies, which is a mix between political science, history, and government. And a fun fact about me is I lived in Washington, D.C. for 8 years.
Very cool. Thank you both, Camille and Stephanie. You can go ahead and turn off your cameras because they will be joining us in a few moments so that we can, again, ask their questions live and learn a little bit more about themselves and their career. We're really excited to have them here with us today. So let's go ahead and learn more about the agencies that are putting on this event. West Basin is a wholesale water agency that provides drinking water to 17 cities and unincorporated areas of Los Angeles County, and we produce recycled water for the region at our water recycling facilities. West Basin was created by a vote of the people in 1947 to make local water supplies more reliable. And as we celebrate our 75th anniversary, we remain committed to our mission of providing a safe and reliable supply of high quality water to the communities we serve. Here is a current map of West Basin's service area, which includes 5 divisions and covers a large portion of the South Bay and LA area. West Basin is governed by an elected 5-member board of directors. Each director represents a division in the service area and is your liaison to learn and listen about any concerns or thoughts you might have about water. Now I'll hand it off to WRD's General Manager, Stefan Tucker, to give us a quick overview of WRD.
Thank you, Janelle. And thanks for having me this morning. And welcome to all the participants of the seminar. So WRD was formed by a vote of the people in 1959 for the purpose of protecting the groundwater resources of the Central and West Coast basins. Prior to the formation of the district in 1959, unregulated and unmanaged overpumping caused many water wells to go dry. Along the coastline, groundwater levels dropped below sea level, allowing salty water to seep into and contaminate the freshwater aquifer beneath us. Next slide. So WRD service area is outlined in the blue lines that you see on your screen. And just to orient you to this map, in the upper right-hand corner, that's kind of outlined in that green dotted area is kind of Montebello, Pico Rivera area. And then down in the lower right of the map, lower left of the map, that dark green area is the Palos Verdes Peninsula. And then you see all of the cities that are represented in WRD's service area in blue. And WRD service area is divided into 2 different areas. It's the Central Groundwater Basin, which is above that brown dotted line, and the West Coast Groundwater Basin, which is below and to the left of that brown dotted line. And all of this area covers about 420 square miles and covers about 4 million residents in the southern Los Angeles County area. So WRD manages about 550,000 acre feet of water per year. And an acre feet, just to orient you, is about the size of a football field. If you fill that football field about a foot deep, that's an acre foot of water. So we're talking 550,000 acre feet of water, which is a lot of water. About half of that water, 50% of that water that's used in the Southern LA County is from groundwater wells that's spread throughout the Central Coast, West Coast, and Central Basins. And then about 50% of it is imported water, which comes from the Colorado River and the State Water Project from the Sacramento Delta area. So WRD replenishes the groundwater basins and monitors the water quality of the basins as well, to ensure that there is no contaminated water that actually gets into the drinking water systems of our purveyors. Next slide.
So Stefan, I believe we would like for you to share a little bit more about your career path
Sure,
on the previous
absolutely.
slide before we bring Monica back on.
Okay. So my career path is I am a mechanical engineer. I graduated from Cal State Northridge. And I know Greg Reed, who is the general manager of West Basin, very well. We actually both worked in the water industry together for 20 years at the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Greg Reed is a civil engineer, and he also graduated from Cal State Northridge. And he started in the transportation industry with LADOT, and I started at the Department of Water and Power as a mechanical engineering assistant. And I worked my way up through that organization, worked there for 33 years, and I retired from there as assistant general manager at the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power before coming to WRD after a brief stint doing consulting in the water industry. So engineering is not the only path that you can take, but it's a very good path that you can take through into the water industry. Primarily civil engineering, and in some cases mechanical and chemical engineering will also provide good paths into the water industry and provide good solid careers as well.
Thank you very much, Stefan. And now we'll ask Monica to come back on and continue on with the PowerPoint.
Thank you for sharing that story, Stefan. And thank you, Janelle. Today, you will get to speak with a water resources engineer and a government affairs representative. But as you can see from the list on your screen, there are a variety of jobs available, all that require various levels of experience and education. Note that these are more than just technical positions, but career paths that can cater to a variety of skills and talents. Also, there are many careers in the water industry opening in the next 5 to 10 years due to a large number of people retiring soon. A quick Google search will certainly give you more information on what can possibly be your future career. And if you are interested in what Janelle and I do, we create programs like this webinar and work closely with educators and other agencies to better promote the importance of water. The first job that we will go over is an operator, whose duties include the maintenance and operation of a number of water facilities, including for distribution, wastewater, or recycled water. The great thing about this job is that it only requires a high school degree and is always in demand. In fact, there are a few openings already in the state of California for operator in training positions, where all you need is your high school degree and a willingness to learn. I love to talk about operators because they really have an important job in our communities, and that is to make sure that clean water flows into our home and the dirty water leaves it. There are 2 different types of operator certification. A treatment certificate involves the operation of a drinking water facility, wastewater facility, or a recycled water facility. They basically oversee high-level operations, including chemical and physical treatment of our water resources. A distribution certificate involves the operation of the distribution infrastructure for our water resources, which is basically maintaining the underground pipes, pumps, and motors that distribute water from facilities to our homes and places of work. There are 5 levels of operator certification with a higher pay and responsibilities as you go up. As long as you pass the level certification test, which is administered by the State Water Resources Control Board, You can start at a level 1 with a high school degree or a level 2 with a bachelor's degree. A lot of companies offer the on-job training to help you grow and keep getting higher level certifications. Pay range depends on your certification, and in California, that is actually quite high. Please note, even though it starts in the high 50s, this is for the people who are likely already certified and have some experience. You can always start out with your high school degree and take advantage of the on-job training to land yourself in the higher pay range. One of today's featured career is a water resources engineer, whose duties involve the design of new systems and equipment that help manage human water resources. Some of the areas water resources engineers touch on are water treatment facilities, distribution pipelines, underground wells, and natural springs. Of course, we have Camille joining us today to speak a little more about her job, so send in your questions to ask her, please. The pay range for this particular type of engineering job is between $82,000 to $167,000 a year. This also depends on experience in the field and education. In order to get a job as a water resources engineer, you would need a minimum of a Bachelor's of Science degree in engineering. It can be mechanical, environmental, or civil engineering, but make sure that you take any classes on water to get your experience. While it is not a requirement, earning a professional engineering PE license is a valuable step for water resources engineers. It often leads to higher earning potential, career advancement, and wider responsibility. Another great career that will be highlighted today by Stephanie, who is here with us today, is that of a government affairs representative. They are responsible for intergovernmental and legislative strategy, analysis, and advocacy on matters of significant impact on district programs, operations, and policies. They have the excellent job of working directly with people in the industry, whether it be engineers, operators, or program specialists, and working directly with elected officials to advocate for funding and policy of these operations. To become a government affairs representative, you should have a Bachelor's of Arts in Public Policy, Public or Business Administration, or Political Science. The starting pay range can begin at about $89,000, depending on your experience and which agency you'd like to work for. Again, we have Stephanie here to speak more about her job and answer all of your questions. I'll go ahead and switch it back off to Janelle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Monica. And let me go ahead and advance the next slide, because the next job we are covering is one of the most exciting jobs, in my opinion, because both Monica and myself either serve as a public information specialist or a public affairs representative for our agency. Other names for this job could be communication specialists or outreach coordinators. The job of a public information specialist is to lead public affairs and public relations of the agency. In mine and Monica's case, we work on the education side, and we get to translate all of the exciting work our engineers and operators do and bring students in to experience it all. This job could also include media relations, so working with news outlets, developing press releases, and also creating messaging for the agency. The pay range for this job begins at $72,000, and you'd need a Bachelor's of Arts in Communications, Public Affairs, Journalism, or Marketing. Moving on to the last job that we'll be going over, which is a Water Resources Analyst, which is a great job for students who like to look at data and come up with their own conclusions. Water Resources Analysts look at long-term trends of water resources, demand, and usage to make well-informed policy changes that help us protect our water resources. Basically, they collect and interpret data to help people just like you and me make sure that we still have water in the future. Especially as the state of California experiences this current drought, we still need water resources analysts to really help us manage our water responsibly. The minimum education for this is a bachelor's degree with pay range starting at $76,000 at a place like West Basin. But for this specific position, a master's degree is preferred for that specialization in water resources. So Monica and I just did a closer look at 5 of these water industry careers, but again, there are dozens of water careers that can fit different skill sets, different education levels based to fit on what you like. Even though we are focused on water, we still need artists, we still need people in human resources, and we still need people in finance to help us operate. So now for the main portion of our time here today, let's get started with our panel. I'll ask the first set of questions and Monica and I will switch off. So remember, you can ask your questions at any time via Zoom. So please feel free to send them in. Stephanie, Monica, and Camille, can I ask you to turn back on your cameras and join us once more? Great, thank you very much. Let me just go ahead and get started on the set of questions. And I wanted to say thank you to everyone who sent in your questions ahead of this panel. I believe we answered a lot of them throughout the PowerPoint, but I'm going to ask a few to both Stephanie and Camille right now. And Monica is going to answer some of these questions, ask some of these questions as well. So let's go ahead and start off with a general question for both Stephanie and Camille. And we would love to learn more. What is one project that you are currently working on? Would love to learn more about what your day-to-day looks like in the present time. I know sometimes that can change from time to time. So let's go ahead and start off with Stephanie, and then we'll have Camille go ahead and answer that question.
Hi, everyone. So one project that we're working on now, at the state level, we are working on a bill that will help make life at WRD a little bit more efficient and streamlined. So every time an agency needs to get a contract, it has to be made public and go out for a bid. And there's a process behind that. And at WRD, as time has gone on, it's become a little bit cumbersome. So we have a bill pending before the state legislature that will help improve that process. And next week, our general manager will be testifying before the state legislature on that. So that means this morning I was on a call with our assistant general manager, the manager of external affairs, and our advocate at the state level, talking about strategy and how to prepare for that testimony. So that is one project that we're working on right now that I was working on this morning. And I really love going into testimony preparation and strategy. So that was an exciting morning for sure.
Hi, everyone. So a project that I'm currently working on is a Chevron nitrification process tank rehab project. So as part of my job, we build and we also maintain the water infrastructure that brings recycled water to our customers. So one of our tanks are currently needing rehabilitation, and it's a nitrification process tank that stores all the nitrified water that goes to one of our customers, Chevron refinery. So this is kind of a big undertaking because it's a rather big tank. So I'm currently in the design phase of this process, and we're hoping to go to construction in the next few months. So it definitely takes a while for these tanks to get rehabilitated or replaced. So it takes a lot of patience and flexibility, but currently in the process.
Thank you very much, Stephanie and Camille. So my next question is going to be for Camille. Can you please discuss the educational requirements for an engineering degree? And specifically, what is the difference between different specialties like chemical, civil, mechanical, and what do you recommend is best for working in the water industry?
Sure. So engineering degrees in general all have this like set foundation. So when you go in, especially in college, you have to take math, physics. And for me as an environmental engineer, I took a lot of chemistry classes as well. And then once you get that base foundation, then you can elevate to more specific courses that are specific to whether you're mechanical, civil, chemical, or environmental. So in my case, my degree fell under the mechanical engineering department. So I actually got to be exposed to a lot of those kinds of courses. And so that involved using AutoCAD, which is a program that's pretty popular within the engineering industry, as well as doing some robotics courses. But I was definitely more interested in the environmental side. So I also took as elective, like environmental studies courses. So I think in going into the water industry, I think Stefan also mentioned it, it's very recommended to have a mechanical or civil, but in my case, environmental also applied. And we also have electrical and we have chemical engineers. So I think just having that engineering background will help you problem solve and navigate through the field.
Thank you very much, Camille. So again, I guess if you have an engineering degree and at least a willingness to learn, any engineering degree will help you land a spot in the water industry. So my next question is going to be for Stephanie. I know you kind of went over this in our first one, but what is one example of legislation or policy that you are able to advocate for the water industry?
Yeah, so one policy in particular that I'm really proud of that is at the state level is in water, when the state tries to determine how to administer grants or to give out grant dollars, they look at a variety of qualifications for different water systems. And one of them is they try to prioritize water systems that are called by the state disadvantaged communities. So this means communities that are low income. And they also add another parameter, which is the size of these communities. So it can be a small disadvantaged community or a larger size. And typically the state will prioritize funding for small disadvantaged communities, or in the water industry, as we call them, DACs, so small DACs. But in LA County, as many of you know, our populations are rather large, right? We have cities that typically range from 60,000 to over 100,000 people. My hometown of Whittier is about 86,000 people. So that means that some of these DAC communities don't qualify for those grant dollars because they're too big. The state is prioritizing small DACs. Well, at WRD, we've been working really, really hard to expand that prioritization to mid-sized or medium-sized DACs. And last year, I put together an advocacy one-pager for our state advocates to reach out to our assembly members and state senators. And it included in their language specifically on, we need a medium-sized DAC. And so this year, when I went through the intended use plan for the state Water Resources Control Board, it included in the draft the definition for medium-sized DAC. And in another document, it specifically stated that the state was going to work with WRD to finalize that definition. So that was really exciting to see WRD's name in the intended use plan and to know that our hard work has been paying off. We've been working, I know WRD has been working on that for a long time, and I'm grateful to be a part of that journey and to have put together that one-pager last year.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. And we'll hand it off to Monica to ask the next set of questions.
Thank you, Janelle. This question is aimed for both Stephanie and Camille, but I'll go ahead. We'll start with Camille. How would you explain what you do to an amateur?
Good question. So I guess the main thing that we do is we help build and maintain our water infrastructure that gets the recycled water to our customers. So I think people don't realize that a lot goes into just doing that. And so there's a planning, there's a construction, and there's also a design phase of those projects. So it's my job to help manage not only the steps it takes to fulfill each of those phases, but also manage the people it takes to bring all of that together and make sure that at every step we're able to fill out the right things, make sure the design's the right way. And so the projects tend to be a little bit longer term, but in the end, it's a very satisfying thing to get those projects implemented, and you get to see your work in the field and how the recycled water customers benefit from it.
Thank you, Camille. Stephanie, would you be able to answer that question? I'll go ahead and repeat it. How would you explain what you do to an amateur?
Yeah, so I would say that my job in government affairs is to make the voices of the community heard at the state level, in the state legislature, and in the halls of Congress, where a lot of our grant dollars come from for WRD. Because I'm in the water industry, I'm specifically focusing on, at the state and federal level, working with our legislators and staff in these offices to understand the importance of infrastructure grant dollars, and specifically to prepare Southern California and the entire state really for droughts. We're in one of the worst droughts that we've had in 1,200 years. It's only going to get worse. So if we want to be prepared, if we want to build those infrastructure projects, we need money to do that. We need support to do that. And that investment needs to come today. So my job at WRD is to make sure that those concerns are being heard by our legislators and working to really help them understand the urgency of it, and putting together an elevator speech, a quick 2-minute description of what we need and why, because legislators are working on issues that span from healthcare and education, financial issues, and the environment. So we have to make it as quick and easy for them as possible.
Thank you, Stephanie. Again, this question is directed to both Stephanie and Camille. Is there anyone special you associate with that has helped you become who you are? Stephanie, would you like to answer first?
Yeah, if we're going from the perspective of my career, my supervisor, Angie Mancias, she's the manager of external affairs. She is an incredible community organizer, incredible at outreach for legislative affairs. And I first met her when I was an intern over 10 years ago. And she is one of those professionals that is a mentor to people. It's not just me, it's a lot of people in the industry and in my field of government affairs. And she has helped shaped the way that I evaluate some of the issues that have come across my desk. And I just really appreciate her leadership and her guidance. And I know that I wouldn't be the professional I am today without her.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I agree with Stephanie. Angie is also my manager, and she's a great person to look up to. She's very helpful to both Stephanie, myself, Shane, and Jen, who make up the external affairs team. So I really reiterate everything Stephanie just said. Thank you. Camille, I'm going to repeat the question for you to answer. Is there anyone special you associate with that has helped you become who you are?
Yeah, so I agree. My supervisors, since I've been in the field, have been very influential, but on a personal level, I definitely say my parents, because they instilled a foundation of encouragement and support and just providing that self-confidence I needed to kind of make my way through an engineering career, studying it, and then becoming an engineer. So I think that they played a pretty vital role into that.
Thank you very much. One more question, and again, for both Stephanie and Camille. When did you realize this was the profession for you? And we'll go ahead and get started with Camille.
Sure. So for me, it was in college. I actually was a part of a volunteer brigade organization. And so I was able to go to Central America and kind of see rural communities who needed access to water. So that definitely influenced me wanting to be in the water industry. And then once I actually started getting internships and I started working in the water industry and seeing all the different facets that you can go into, whether it was planning or regulatory, that's kind of where I steered my way slowly to water engineering, because I wanted to be more in the technical aspect of it. So it was a longer process than some people's, but eventually I got here and I'm very excited.
Thank you, Camille. Stephanie, when did you realize this was the profession for you?
So when I was in college, I interned in the U.S. House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. And at the time, I wanted to go to law school and I planned to work in D.C. for a short period of time. But then after I graduated, I really enjoyed my internship and I decided to work in the House of Representatives. So I ended up working there for 8 years, eventually becoming a legislative director. So that means that I was overseeing a team of staff in Washington, D.C., advocating for the congressman's policy agenda. I specifically focused on, for about 5 years, the appropriations process. And so that's how grant dollars move from Congress and those down to the local level. And I was fascinated by it. I really enjoyed it. Some of the policy areas that I specifically focused on were housing, transportation, and the environment. And so eventually, for people who work in Washington, D.C. on the Capitol, some stick it out and work there for a very long time. Others decide to change their career paths a little bit. And for me, I was ready to move on and move back to California because I was born and raised here and wanted to be with my family. And so I was looking at careers in either air quality, transportation, or the environment. And I saw there was an opening with the Water Replenishment District. I knew that this agency focuses on environmental sustainability. We're working to offset the need for imported water so that when there's a drought, we have the resources we need in our backyard or beneath our feet, really, from the aquifers. And so that really excited me and I applied to this position, and that's how I ended up in the water industry. So for students who are listening, if you're thinking, I don't really know if I want to be in water, if you're kind of a generalist who likes to experience a lot of different issues or backgrounds or policy backgrounds, government affairs is a really exciting career path and it can lead you to water. And I really hope that you end up here because water is life. Everyone needs it. So that's how I ended up in the water industry.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Great. So I'll go ahead and take on the next few questions. The next few questions were actually asked by Shem S at California Virtual Academy. And this one is for Camille. Were there any other careers that you wanted to do apart from water resources engineer?
Yes, there were. So when I first started, I actually was in the planning industry. So I was in private consulting and I kind of dipped my fingers into that. And then from there, I was exposed to more of the regulatory side. So I considered going to the regulatory, and that involves like permits and making sure water treatment facilities are up to environmental standards. And then eventually there was an opening at West Basin in which I can go into design. And then essentially that is kind of what the path for my environmental engineer is geared for. So it worked out to where I can learn more about capital improvement projects and see the project from start to end, because that was kind of what I was aiming to do. So there are a lot of different things you can do in the water industry. And I think my first few years, that was me trying to figure out where I fit and what seemed the most interesting and challenging for me.
Thank you, Camille. Well, we're lucky to have you in the water industry, so we're glad that you made it this way. So this next question is for both Stephanie and Camille. What challenges do you face when you're doing your job? On the other side of that, what is your favorite part when doing this job? So we'll have Stephanie answer that question first, and then we'll go to Camille.
Something that's definitely challenging in my current job is I work with, and I enjoy this aspect of it too. It's a good challenge. I work with a variety of departments within WRD. I work with our hydro team, with our engineers, with our water resources department as well. And I work with them to try and find grant programs that WRD wants to pursue so that we can make sure we're advocating for those. But that also means I have to shift gears really quickly. If I'm working with our engineering team and then go to hydro, I kind of have to shift my mindset quickly and adjust my messaging for whatever it is that we're developing, whether it's one pagers or flyers for an event, or if it's an advocacy strategy or testimony. I have to be able to grasp that background rather quickly and learn how to market that information to the audience that we're working with, because even that changes. So it's a challenge. That's probably one of the challenging aspects of my job, but it's my favorite as well, because I'm constantly on my toes and learning. And I'm a very social person. I enjoy working with with people from different walks of life. And so I have that opportunity in this role. And that's what I really like about it.
Thank you, Stephanie. Same question for Camille. What challenges do you face when doing your job? And on the other side of that, what is your favorite part?
Yeah, so I'd say a challenge is definitely, there's a lot of things that are out of your control. There comes scheduling conflicts in terms of working with contractors or working with developers, and they have their own schedule. So it's trying to work with them to make things still move forward. And also there's obviously design engineering challenges. So that to me is my favorite part of the job. There are certain things like for my Chevron tank rehab, we have a limited space within the facility to use. So that was a design engineering challenge that we work with the subconsultants who we hired, which are other design engineers, to make sure we can make it work. So I'd say that is the challenge, but also the favorite part of my job, because like Stephanie, I like being on my toes. I like when there's new things to look forward to. And it's just a really enjoyable job because there is a lot of teamwork and collaboration involved. So it's fun to come to work.
Thank you, Camille. And this next question is going to be for Stephanie. What skills do you need for your job? And specifically, what extracurriculars or classes work best to prepare you for your career as a government affairs rep?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I was in high school. I participated in a lot of speech competitions. So they often are hosted with the Lions Club or the Rotary Club. I was in student government. And then when I was in college, I majored in American Studies. And I've always, throughout my life, I've been a generalist. So I took classes in public health, in also in just government and all that. But I think a lot of my preparation came once I moved to work in Washington, D.C., because that's where I really got to do deep dives into specific policy areas. If you work in the government affairs track, you really have an opportunity to learn a lot about a lot of different industries. And I was just really fortunate to end up in the water industry. But that's kind of been my trajectory. It wasn't linear. I didn't come in, with the mindset of trying to become an engineer, specifically in water. But I'm really grateful that I did end up here.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. And I'll hand it off to Monica to address the questions that people have been sending in.
Thank you very much, Janelle. One of the first questions we have is from Maritza Cardenas Montoya. She asked, what is the goal of the water industry? And I'm going to chime in, and if Stephanie and Camille and Janelle or Stefan would like to chime in, but I believe that one of the general goals of the water industry is to create locally sustainable water resources available for their communities.
Yeah, I would, that's a great answer, Monica. I would also add that, simply put, we make sure that clean water gets to all of us and that we can responsibly dispose of our dirty water once we're done using it. And I know, especially here in California, we don't see, or in Southern California, we don't see a lot of rain, but
Right.
Luckily for us, we always have water coming out of our taps. We can always flush our toilet. We can always take a shower. So it's making sure that we can still have that luxury here in Southern California.
Thank you. Another question we have is for Janelle, actually. Do you think you're making a difference in your job? How do you know the water is clean or not?
Thank you very much. I think she put Melissa's name as the person who asked that question from her class. But that's a great question, Melissa. I do think that I'm making a difference in my job. I believe myself to be an environmental educator, and essentially my goal is to make sure that students in any grade level feel like they have a stake in the environment and they have the ability to make a positive difference in the environment, and specifically in protecting our water resources. The next question is, how do you know if the water is clean or not? That is actually the job of some people in the water industry. So you could be a laboratory technician at a water quality laboratory. You could also be an environmental quality specialist. So there are lots of different jobs and a lot of different environmental regulations that water agencies just like West Basin and WRD need to adhere to make sure that our water is safe and clean. And there are people working in labs conducting samples of everything to make sure that we're following all of those regulations. I see Stefan turned his camera on. Did you want to jump in and add anything to that, Stefan?
Sure. The water industry is a very highly regulated industry. And there are water standards that come from the state EPA as well as the federal EPA that every water purveyor has to meet in order to serve water to ensure that it's clean and safe to drink. So there's a lot that goes into that. As Janelle mentioned, there's water quality lab technicians. Monica was talking about the water treatment operators very early on. They do a lot of studying and get certified and just to make sure that the water is clean and safe to drink when it comes out of tap. So, you know, for the regular resident or person who opens their tap, they just want to make sure that the water comes out of the tap and it's clean and safe to drink. But there are literally thousands and thousands of people in just the Southern California area that are working very hard to make sure that happens.
Thank you very much, Stefan.
Thank you, Stefan. I do have a few more questions. Camille, this one is directed to you. What kind of software do you use for your job? And how did you learn to use that software?
Yeah, so I'd say the main one is AutoCAD, but luckily there's someone else that I work with who is better at it than I am, and so he can take it over more. But AutoCAD is essentially a pretty standard engineering program that you learn, especially as a mechanical engineer and civil engineer in college. So I was fortunate to take a course and I learned how to use it there. But there are also other courses you can take separate other than being an undergrad. There are a lot of courses you can take online to learn it. And it's a very useful program, especially for me, because we look at a lot of design plans that use AutoCAD. So it's helpful to know how it works. And then, yeah, so I'd say it's pretty easy to learn on your own if for some reason you're not able to take an official college course.
Okay, thank you, Camille. This next question is directed for Stephanie. What skills do you need for your job? What extracurriculars or classes worked best to prepare you for the job that you have now?
So I think some skills that I rely on heavily are being able to read a lot of information in a short amount of time and being able to write quickly. I one time was given an assignment when I was before WRD, when I was in Washington, D.C., and I had to write a question for a congressman to ask a witness, and I had about 30 minutes to do it. And so it had to be right. So if you enjoy writing and you have an opportunity to really delve into that skill while you're in high school or in college, I highly suggest that. Also, public speaking is a good skill to have. Those, I didn't have a class for public speaking per se, but I did enter into those speech competitions like I talked about. And so those are some of the skill sets that I use. I think also listening and being able to assess what people are saying and hearing the concerns of the community and from stakeholders and being able to translate that into a positive advocacy strategy is a big help as well.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'll go ahead and ask one more that's directed to both Camille and Stephanie, and then I'll hand it off to Janelle. But one question came in. I love seeing representation in water industry careers, which is an area that we can always improve on. Do you have any advice for young women that would like to pursue similar career paths? Camille, would you like to start with that one?
Yeah, I'd say going into engineering, it's typically historically a male-dominated field. And that's in the classroom and also literally in the construction field. So I'd say just don't be intimidated, kind of persevere and work through what you want to achieve. And eventually you'll get there. But I think that was like just being encouraged to keep going despite the fact that what's in front of you doesn't look so female. It's great to kind of just keep pushing it to that direction. And I can say now working in the field, there is a lot more female. So that's a very encouraging thing to be around. And also I'd say the main thing was don't be afraid to try new things and get involved with things that you weren't sure you'd be good at because it might surprise you.
Thank you, Camille. Stefan, since you are on the webinar today, you're joining us. Would you like to speak on that? I can repeat the question. I love seeing representation in water industry careers, which is an area that we can always improve on. Do you have any advice for young women that would like to pursue similar career paths?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Camille says. I've been working in water for 35 years now. And when I started, there were very few women working in the water industry at any level. And now in engineering, it's almost about 40 to 50% women that are working in the field. And it's very encouraging because men think a certain way, and I can say that because I'm a man, right? And sometimes when you need to get a more well-rounded answer, it's just good to get a different perspective, whether that's from another gender or from another culture. It's better to get those more well-rounded perspectives. So whether it be in engineering or public affairs or governmental affairs, it's just good to have a diversity of responses and answers and thought that's going into those well-rounded solutions.
Thank you, Stefan. And Stephanie, I'll repeat the question for you once again. I love seeing representation in water industry careers, which is an area that we can always improve on. Do you have any advice for young women that would like to pursue similar career paths?
Yeah, I think a good approach for women looking to enter into any career is always never be afraid to ask questions. I find that when I was starting to work, I sometimes didn't want to ask questions, or I felt very insecure about asking them, whether it was related to my career, if I had a job specific question. But it was by asking questions that helped me find a lot of mentors throughout my career trajectory. So if you have a question, or if you see someone in your career path who you really admire, who is doing well, reach out to them and see if you can grab coffee, if you can get together, ask them advice, ask advice from the people who walked the path before you have. And then once you get there, make sure you turn around and you're giving that time as well and paying it forward, because the only way we can improve inclusivity and representation in these various spaces we need to work together, and we need to make sure that we're paying it forward. And that's the only way that we can get the diverse workforce that we want to see.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'll go ahead and hand it off to Janelle.
Thank you, everyone. So this next question came in last night, actually, from our Youth Build group. For Camille, what does a day in the field look like? You said you work a lot on construction sites. And the second part to that question is, what would happen if water resources engineers didn't exist, which I think would be a very bad thing for us. So go ahead, Camille.
Yeah, so a day in the field is very exciting. It's also very early. So I would say you arrive at the construction site pretty early on. And luckily I check in on my email and do all that stuff. And there's usually a morning meeting. So you check in with everyone who's at the field and on site. And then either mostly my job is inspecting and just kind of going around and making sure the activity of the day that we're supposed to be doing is abiding by the design plans, and our inspector is potentially out there, construction manager is potentially out there. And so we hire them specifically to do that job, but we're there just to kind of oversee. And in case anything comes up, we're there to hopefully get something solved at the field. So I typically am only there half the day, and then I'll go back to our office and continue working. But if it involves a longer day at the field, then we'll stay there the whole day. And there's usually like an office on site that we can work at. So we're not just consistently at the field, but it is definitely something that you have to be ready to be on your feet and problem solve for. And then the second question was, what would happen if water resources didn't exist? I think a lot of projects wouldn't get completed. I think they're pretty pivotal as project managers, really, too, to get these pipelines completed, to get these water treatment facilities fixed if something goes wrong. So it's pretty important to have water resources engineer, especially in the recycled water field. So that's all I can speak to. I don't know if Stefan wants to answer this question as well, since he has some experience in it. But yeah, I'd say a lot of our water wouldn't get to where it needs to go if we didn't have water resources engineer.
Thank you. Stefan, did you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, I did want to say that, you know, engineering is a very important role when it comes to water. But if we didn't have any engineers, you really wouldn't notice much right away. But as things started breaking and wearing out, and things start aging and deteriorating and need to be fixed, you notice that the water wouldn't be flowing the way it's flowing now. So engineers don't have an immediate effect, but they look out for the long-term stability and sustainability of the systems that do deliver water to your household.
Thank you, Stefan, and thank you to all of our water resources engineers for making sure that our infrastructure is prepared and it can keep delivering water to all of us. So the next question is going to be for Stephanie. What is it like to communicate with government leaders? And specifically, did you like working in Washington? Because I know you mentioned that you were there for several years.
Yeah, I would say that at first it was intimidating. I think when I first started working in DC, my first internship, I was 21. Fortunately, the congresswoman I was working for is very friendly and very down to earth. So that was easy, but it varies based on who you're talking to. And different members of Congress or different politicians have different expectations of their staff. So you just kind of have to be ready for anything. But I did really enjoy it because I had an opportunity to learn from leaders who are considered historical figures. I was able to shake hands with President Obama twice, which was a really incredible experience. I was in a meeting with Nancy Pelosi talking about immigration policy. I met former Speaker Boehner. He was the Republican speaker back a while ago now. And I even had a chance to dance with Dolores Huerta. So if you know Cesar Chavez and Si Se Puede, I mean, she was a big person in that movement. And so being able to dance with her at a gala, I mean, my goodness, I have had such incredible experiences, and I've learned a tremendous amount, not only from the elected officials who I've worked with, but the staff from those offices as well, because just behind every elected official, there's a team of people who are supporting them. And just like in the water industry, behind every water agency that is making sure you get that water, there's a team of people working to make that happen. So I've been really fortunate in my career to always be a part of a team. I consider myself to be a person who tries to be a positive influence on every team and bring a light to the room to make things, just a bit better, because sometimes in politics, things are really high pressure and it's easy to become negative. But I always try to look at the bright side, because at the end of the day, we're working together to make a better future. So for anyone interested in this career path, please reach out to me. I have thoroughly enjoyed it and I really recommend it to those who are interested.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. That sounds like an amazing experience. Now, I did want to address that we did have a few questions come up on salary schedules and vacation accruals and things like that. I will say that as government agencies, both West Basin and WRD are required to post this information on our website. While we will not disclose our panelist salary information today, you can definitely look that up on both of our websites at westbasin.org and wrd.org as well. So with that, I'll hand it off to Monica to ask another set of questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Janelle. We did get a question from Addison, and this is directed to both Stephanie and Camille. What is the most difficult task at your job? Let's start with Camille.
I'd say the difficult task is definitely coordinating with a bunch of different people. Everyone has their own schedule. So to move projects forward, it does involve a lot of reaching out and communicating with people outside of the office that don't work with you directly. So I'd say that is probably right now, day to day, that's a difficult task. And then you can get more technical, and there's definitely engineering questions that come up that is very challenging. But again, that is just more specific to my job. But in general, the day to day, it's going to be communicating and emailing and getting people together for meetings. It's honestly a pretty hard task in itself.
Thank you, Camille. Stephanie, same question.
Yeah, I'd have to echo that too. And when in my job in government affairs, I'm often putting together educational materials, either for the public or for elected officials. And that has to go through a lengthy review process. So we want to make sure that we're getting figures and numbers that are accurate. And as Camille can testify to, the projects are constantly evolving. So a project that could have been 600,000, acre feet a month ago is now 375,000 acre feet. And I have to constantly be checking with my peers and my colleagues to make sure that the figures we're putting out are accurate, or find a creative way to write about those projects and programs where we don't need to update them every month or every few weeks, because everything moves very quickly and there are changes, and trying to stay in the loop when you're not in those departments presents a challenge. But it also means that I have a chance to talk with my colleagues even more often. So I like that.
Thank you, Stephanie. This question is actually directed to Stephanie. It's from Melissa, and she is asking, what are the goals of your job?
So the goals of my job are to advocate for grant programs that support water infrastructure. And we try to advocate for language that is specific, that can specifically help WRD or support WRD. For example, and this was before my time, but before I came to WRD, the agency worked with Speaker Rendon from California State Assembly to secure funding for the Maywood Mutual Water Company #2. And they had an issue where the water was discolored, and they needed grant funding to really fix that. And so my colleagues who were at WRD before me went to the state and advocated for funding and got $2.7 million. And now fast forward, Monica put together a really fantastic event for a groundbreaking to celebrate that project has now been complete. So now my job that I'm in this role, I'm advocating in a similar way for other projects and programs. Over the past few months, I've sent applications to members of Congress for grant programs that they specifically oversee. So these members of Congress are picking 10 to 15 projects that they send to their colleagues on the Appropriations Committee requesting funding for local projects. So at WRD, I submitted a variety or a number of applications, but for 3 specific projects. And I had to tailor each one to each office. And the funding that we requested ranged from $1 million or $250,000 up to $10 million. So it means shifting gears and being able to move quickly and make those requests to those electeds based on what information they're asking. So I hope that provided some clarity to the question, but if not, reach out to me and I can, I'm happy to discuss further.
Thank you, Stephanie. We do have another question that just came in, and anyone on the panel can go ahead and answer. Have you faced water-based ethical issues and how did you deal with it? That's a great question. Does anyone want to chime in? Stefan?
Yeah, there's ethical issues that we have to face every day, from transparency issues to equity issues, and making sure that not only the squeaky wheel is the one that gets the grease, because typically people in more affluent areas will speak more, they're more vocal, and they get more attention. So the same attention that you apply to those people, you have to make sure that you apply to the people who don't have that kind of voice, so that they're getting equitable treatment as well. And that you just have to do because it's the right thing to do, and not because you're getting pressure to do it. And those are the kinds of issues that we face every day, to make sure that the people in our service area are getting treated with the same equity, no matter where they are on their social economic spectrum.
Thank you, Stefan. We'll do one last question. And I believe both of Camille and Stephanie already answered, but correct me if I am wrong. For your job, do you work with other departments within your organization? Stephanie?
Yes, I work with other departments. I think I pretty much have worked with every department at this point, ranging from finance and HR management to hydrogeology and the engineers. If I am missing a department, please let me know, because I need to make sure I find them. But yes, we work in government affairs. We work with every single department, and I really enjoy that because we have really fantastic staff at WRD who are all working toward a sustainable water future. And I'm really grateful to be a part of that.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, one more question and then we'll move on. I'll just go ahead and direct this one to Camille. How many tasks are there in the industry? So I'm assuming they're asking if there are a lot of things to do in the water industry.
Yes.
For
a general answer, yes. I guess pertaining to engineering, it changes every day, but a lot of it is, I guess, overall, communication is big. So you're emailing, you're setting up meetings, you're project managing, you're checking your budget, you're checking your schedule. And then there's the engineering portion, which is you're reviewing designs, you're considering how construction is going to go. So there's always a task to do, if that answers the question.
I think it does. Thank you so much, everyone. I believe those are all the questions that we have received.
Okay, yes, that is correct. And thank you to our panel for joining us. We'll hand it off to Monica to go ahead and start the closeout of our PowerPoint.
Again, thank you so much, Janelle. And again, thank you to Camille, Stephanie, and Stefan for answering all of the questions on your toes. You all did a great job. We want you all to join the water industry. According to the U.S. Department of Labor Occupational Outlook Handbook 2016-17 edition, the water industry will require 7,000 new water and wastewater operators from 2014 to 2024 as the current workforce ages and retires. Now that you have had a glimpse of a few water industry careers, we encourage you to do your own research and hopefully create a path to a fulfilling career in the water industry, just as our panelists have done and Janelle and I have done as well. To begin your search, be sure to check local professional organizations focused on minority groups or specific disciplines, sanitation, special districts, various levels of professional organizations. Many of these organizations offer free or reduced membership costs for students and offer a lot of free training and networking events. Here is a list of a few scholarships to help you either get started or continue your path in the water industry. These are all for certificate or bachelor's in water-related fields, such as engineering. There are a number of scholarships all available on the AWWA website. I'll go ahead and hand it off to Janelle.
Thank you. So for students that are interested in the water industry, it's never too early to get involved. I know this was kind of a question that came up today as well, but for high school students, I highly recommend that you get involved with local environmental organizations or science-related clubs that will help make you a competitive candidate. In fact, West Basin has a water quality volunteer program with the Surfrider Foundation, so that's an excellent start for some of you. But both West Basin and WRD offer paid internships for college-age students as early as community college. So I recommend you check our websites for more information. In fact, we are joined here today by a student that attended our original panel back in 2020, and she is now an intern at WRD. So that is a wonderful success story. LADWP and Metropolitan Water District in the LA County also offer a lot of training programs, but if you want a more broad look at different positions you could get, I recommend you check out BC Water Jobs and Water District Jobs to see if there are any internships or part-time jobs or other positions that are available to you. Again, it's not too late to make decisions to set yourself up for a successful water industry career. These 4 colleges in LA and Orange County offer programs in water technology and distribution, and will give you the proper training to pursue certificate or operator positions specifically in water. So these programs are for those people who would like to enter the workforce sooner rather than later, as many of these are certificate or AS programs. But you could also attend any college for a 4-year degree in environmental sciences, engineering, accounting, human resources, or finance, and that would give you the proper training for these careers in water. Again, with 1/3 of the water industry workforce eligible to retire within 10 years, there is a huge need for all of you to move into these positions as you consider your various career paths. Remember, there are so many different options in the water industry that can support a wide variety of skills. And we hope that through this panel, you will become empowered with the information and knowledge to continue your pursuit in a water industry career. So that concludes our panel. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for participating. Camille, Stephanie, and Stefan, thank you very much for taking the time to join us on your Friday. And again, this was the 2nd program of its kind, and we'd love to continue to offer this program to students within our region. The recordings will be available after this panel in case you would like to see it. And again, the first 25 teachers that verify their class attendance, either by providing student names or a photo of your class watching the event, will receive a $50 Office Depot gift card in return for their time to help support your classroom. Monica, do you have anything else you'd like to add at this time?
Yeah, thank you, Janelle. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us on Friday. I know everyone's ready for the weekend. And to the panelists again, I know, Stephanie, today was your Friday off, and I feel horrible that you had to come in today. But again, thank you. And we hope to continue to partner with water agencies such as West Basin to make these programs available to you. We also look forward to hearing your feedback or any other questions you might have. At the end of the webinar, a survey will pop up. Please fill it out if you can. You will also receive it as an email just in case you have to log off pretty quickly right now. This survey will allow Janelle and I to plan for future education-based events. And Stefan, thank you for taking the time from your busy day to be a part of this webinar. We really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, and thank you to our panelists. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Bye.